Ambassador, thank you, sir, for those extraordinarily generous and kind remarks. And to say I'm happy to be here is an understatement. I want to salute not only Colombia's ambassador to the United States, from whom we just heard, but our ambassador, who you'll be hearing from later on. You have in Colombia, Mr. President, one of our very best, and I hope you all will enjoy hearing from him later on, as well as from the Minister of Energy, Senor Valenzuela, who is very knowledgeable in this industry that means so much to Texas, to Houston, indeed to the entire United States. I wish I could have done it like Lee Brown. When I'm up for re-election, that was. I mean, my God, we don't even have a race. This guy's done such a good job. And Mayor, it's wonderful to see you, sir, and I'm delighted to be back with the partnership. Bill, thank you for inviting me over. And I'm honored to be here because I have also great regard for what this business conference is about, and I salute the partnership for its key role in all of this. May I publicly apologize to the President for having to leave after these brief remarks. I've just returned, and I know Continental Airlines well represented here, and I've just returned on this nonstop flight from Tokyo. So I'm slightly jet-lagged out, but besides that, this is the first day back, the second day back in Texas after 5 months with Barbara up in Maine. So, Mr. President, I apologize, but I will tell you that we've just had a wonderful breakfast, a substantive breakfast over at Bob Mosbacker's house, so I was privileged to learn a great deal about what this outstanding president is doing for his country. Apologies for my shabby behavior at having to leave before you speak. I hope you will forgive me. Thank you all very, very much.
Before starting, President Bush was talking about the history of my father being a former president. Remember me when I went to Heidelberg College in Tiffin, Ohio, to receive an honorary degree with Malcolm Forbes Jr. And when he gave his speech, he said, "There's nothing wrong with nepotism as long as you keep it in the family." Huh? It's a great honor to be introduced. I've been introduced by former President George Bush, one of this century's great statesmen. As Ambassador already said, my country will never forget his support during the early part of this decade. President Bush was one of the first to acknowledge Colombia as a decided partner in the war against drugs. We will always remember him as a visionary with a great sense of history. I would also like to thank the Greater Houston Partnership for honoring Colombia in this year's Consular Forum. Houston's outstanding diplomatic corps and the distinguished leadership of the Junior Chamber of Commerce have been key in highlighting my country's culture and business opportunities. I can think of no better place than the energy capital of the world, with the most important players in the city business and energy sectors, to have an open and honest discussion about Colombia. When I watch the global news or read the international press, I sometimes wonder if the country portrayed is the same one I have lived in all my life and was elected to govern. The press covers only a very small part of the story. There is another country, one you don't hear about that often, a country where people debate everything from political reform to electric power regulation, a country that responds to the dynamics of internal rates of return, weighted average cost of capital, and expected NPVs. Yet, this country rarely makes the 7 o'clock news. And I am here today to tell it like it is about Colombia, with no nonsense, no denying the severity of our armed conflict and social unrest, no runarounds regarding our economic situation, no false promises about the success of our peace process. Yet, I hope to be able to put our problems into perspective and introduce you to the country that you don't see that often on CNN. A society constructively debating its future, building pipelines, reforming its education system, starting new businesses, and above all, striving every day to overcome its difficulties. We must remember that we cannot look at a country as if it were a static picture. History has its ways of putting things into perspective, of showing you where problems came from, and more importantly, how they can be solved. So please bear with me while I outline a brief account of where we are headed, and how we are going to get there. People like yourselves, accustomed to analyze the impact of your decisions on the companies you run in terms of the next 20, 30, or 50 years, will understand how many of my policies are not meant to make headlines, but to reconstruct Colombian society for the next 100 years. Making the news is easy, building a new society is not. Colombia's guerrilla groups are of diverse origins. In many ways, they are similar to the great number of left-wing subversive groups that arose in the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s throughout Latin America. Yet they also have profound differences. Colombia's two remaining guerrilla groups, known as the FARC and the ELN, were formed out of the agrarian conflict of the late 40s and the environment of the Cold War. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, both groups have grown increasingly dependent on extortion and kidnapping, and more recently on charging a fee on cocaine and heroin production. The vast amounts of money stemming from the illegal drug trade is most certainly a key reason why Colombia's guerrillas have lasted so long. Resources generated by drug consumers worldwide help explain why our guerrillas persist after most other movements of this sort have disappeared. It should be said that the longest guerrilla conflict in the Americas is perhaps not solely our responsibility. At last, the global community is coming to understand that helping Colombia to rid itself of its drug-feed violence will help them rid themselves of addicts and dealers on their own streets. My country is more the victim than the villain when it comes to drugs. Colombia has taken an extraordinary toll in the drug war. The loss of human life and the deterioration of our economy and values can only be compared to one seen on the 1920s here in the United States during the alcohol prohibition period. The economic rationale is the same. The social effects are the same. There is not much difference between our Pablo Escobar and your Al Capone. Both are now history. When we look to our neighboring countries, we see that they have overcome their troubles with subversive groups. Colombia deserves the same good fortune, and that's why my administration was elected on a platform of peace and change. For the first time in over 40 years, Colombian society has united to demand no more violence. Ever since October 1997, when Colombians cast an historic vote in favor of a referendum for peace, demonstrations supporting the peace process have sprung up all around the country. What Colombia is clearly not facing is a civil war. Civil wars imply two or more different factions of a society, legitimated representatives of different groups who are fighting against one another. In Colombia, however, we are talking about a confrontation of less than 20,000 armed individuals against our entire society. In the last 10 years, the Colombian guerrilla has lost its ideological support, and the polls make it clear. Less than 4% of Colombians support the guerrillas. My people are fed up with the kidnappings and the attacks on the civilian population and its infrastructure. We are determined to put an end to more than 40 years of destabilization by the guerrilla forces. This is a unique conflict that requires a unique solution, and we are committed to finding it. But it is, after all, a process. Processes require steps in certain directions, one at a time. Processes take time. Take a look at El Salvador, look at Guatemala, consider the example of the IRA and look at the results in Spain. None of these happen overnight, but in the end, with patience, perseverance, and time, the benefits came to those societies that have had the stamina and will to persist. We have to build a new society. We have to reincorporate those 20,000 men who have, for over 4 decades, destabilized our society. And we must put together a country where they fit it in, both politically and economically, in order to guarantee that they abandon their arms and illegal means of sustenance. Experience shows that in order to obtain lasting peace, armed factions must be allowed political space and economic viability. We are determined to finding a way so that those that make your headlines by blowing up transmission towers or pipelines can make a point in a living without turning to violence. Our goal is to make social mobility possible and to allow real political participations for all Colombians. No peace is possible if people have not hope of opportunities, opportunities that have been denied systematically throughout our history. No peace is possible with a political system that perpetuates its own in power and does not allow equal access to all. And this is not easy. If anybody here has a 4-line receipt or can give me a magic formula, I'll be glad to take it. If someone will hand me a solution so powerful that it will bear results in just 12 months, I personally will nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize. Journalism is in my blood, both as a profession and as a patient. But if someone can show me how to get the press to cover a news story with the intricate details of a peace process, I want to hire him immediately. Processes do not make headlines. A good photo op does. Most of the real work goes on in silence and amidst profound conceptual debates, which is how it should be. We are building a country for the next 100 years, not for the evening news. My administration gamble is to create a space to negotiate Colombia's heartfelt desire for peace. So yes, we have established a neutral detention zone. Yes, we have made the decision to remove our military presence from 5 municipalities. This is an important part of our commitment to peace. Let's look at the facts and now blow things out of proportion. Let's look at the statistics and put things in perspective. The FARC army, it's made of less than 80,000 men. Only one quarter of 1% of the Colombian population lives in the detention zone. Most, or the 42,000 square kilometers of the area, is either mountainous, infertile grasslands, or jungle. And less than 0.01% of Colombia's GDP comes from this area. The detention zone is a temporary concession created by law, and it does not interfere with democratically elected officials in the area. It has a civic police force in charge of protecting the civilian population. Throughout the rest of the country, where the other 99% of the people live, the government and its increasingly strong army has not and will not renounce its obligation to enforce the rule of law. It has not and will not avoid prosecuting the insurgents. So let's get it straight. We have not and will not renounce our territorial integrity. We have not and will not create a heaven for anything more than furthering negotiations with the guerrilla movements in accordance with my country's legitimate claim for peace. So what I am asking of you today is to put the Colombian conflict in its historical context. Look past terrorist acts like the hijacking of the plane and remember where we come from in Latin America. It has not been that long since the Peruvian Shining Path, or the Montoneros in Argentina, or the peace treaties in Central America. Our neighbors overcame their conflicts, and so we will. We know we are going. We have the strongest possible sense of direction. We are going to build a durable peace, and we have already advanced significantly in that direction. Our Plan Colombia has been intensely debated at home, and it's quickly gaining the support of the United States and the international community. But the fact remains that we do have an armed conflict. So why should you invest in Colombia in the midst of this peace process? We are not asking pro bono work. Colombia, fortunately, is not a charity case. It is not a secret that profits can be made in complex situations. Just ask Occidental, that made its name in oil by gambling on the future of Libya, or those who invest in post-war in Germany with hyperinflation and negative growth. Colombia has important assets that do not disappear even in a recession or amidst social unrest. We are the fourth largest market in Latin America with an historical stable growth rate. Our geographic position at the tip of the Andes region make us the gateway into the second largest economic zone in Latin America and the point of entry into all of Central America. The economic difficulties we are currently enduring have little to do with social unrest or the peace process. Our troubles originate in outrageous economic policies enacted by the previous government. The diagnosis does not require sophisticated analysis. Excess liquidity caused by one fiscal expansion after the next was immediately followed by a strong monetary contraction. The objective, still quite incomprehensible to me, was to artificially maintain an overvalued exchange rate. This led to a skyrocketing rise in interest rates, which in turn led to the Colombian economy's most severe recession in the last 70 years. The answer to our economic difficulties are as clear as the diagnosis. We require a strict economic orthodoxy. We have been practicing it since my first day in office. Results are beginning to show. Interest rates have been cut in half over the last 12 months. We are close to anchoring single-digit inflation rates for the first time in 3 decades, and we are already eliminating the trade deficit. All this was recognized by International Monetary Fund, who recently approved an important loan to stabilize our balance of payments. The best proof, however, that we are on the right track was the recent floating of the peso after nearly a decade of a banned system. We have had no overshooting, as happened in most of the countries where this was done. In fact, it has come about virtually unnoticed. I can think of no better demonstration of the strength of our macroeconomic fundamentals. Our economic difficulties will be solved in the very short term. We will be able to offer not only the most stable contractual conditions in Latin America, but also a healthy economy. Stability has been the overbearing characteristic of our market. A 50-year history of continuous growth and stable economic conditions will be reinstated. The Colombian economy has been characterized by honoring every single obligation, every single clause in all its legal and financial agreements. And this also doesn't make headlines. I know, but this is the truth. Even in the most adverse conditions, Colombia has never given in the temptation of populism. Labor unions are currently asking the government to default payment on our foreign debt. I could probably get my popularity rate soaring if I doubled public expenditure, but not paying our international financial obligations. Fortunately, I am not about to sacrifice 50 years of history for 5 minutes of glory. Investing in Colombia is a sound, profitable decision. This government is committed to reactivating private investment by improving conditions for companies. Oil is our best example. When I came into office, oil reserves were steadily declining at 5% a year. Companies quickly pointed out, and we agree, that conditions made it unattractive to drill in Colombia. Royalty rates were too high and did not respond to production volumes. Ecopetrol's shares in the association contracts reduced the return on prospects for private companies, and environmental licensing procedures could have projects at a standstill for years. Each one of these issues was addressed and solved. We brought the state take down by 20%. We cut the time frames for environmental licensing in half. We do not have stand here and promises we will make things better. We already have. But this is not only oil. Our country is a solid partner for businesses. You do not have to believe me. Just ask your colleagues. Many of those here today are not only already in Colombia, but do not want to leave and are actively engaging in new businesses in my country. Exxon, who has been in Colombia for over 80 years, has just signed a 25-year extension to continue operation in the Cerrejón coal mine. Ask them if Colombia is an attractive business destination. Enron, who has been in Colombia for 5 years, is rapidly expanding their business on many fronts. They intend to build a new gas pipeline suitable for export between Colombia and Panama. They are also looking at ways to install a gas treatment plant in Cusiana and exploring the option of hydropower. Ask them if Colombia is an attractive place to invest and grow. Reliant first invested in electric distribution and generation of rural areas. 1 year later, they gained control of all the distribution companies along Colombia's Caribbean coast. Would they invest nearly $1.2 billion if they had not thought Colombia is a promising and profitable market? Just last year, Drummond doubled its investment in Colombia with the goal of reaching a production of 13.5 million tons of coal per annum by the year 2002. Colombia is ideally located to increase its shares in the U.S. market. They have given us the good news that they will reach their goal next year. Ask Drummond about their competitive exporting from Colombia in a business where every penny counts. Occidental, one of the companies most adversely affected by the Colombian guerrillas, has not only stayed in Colombia, but will, by the end of the year, begin exploring one of the most promising oil prospects in Latin America. They can tell you firsthand that despite any difficulties, the Colombian government is a sound and reliable partner. They have been in the country for over 25 years, and they plan to be there several more. Ask them if it is possible to do business in Colombia. Texaco has been a pioneer in offshore gas drilling in our country. Their aggressive plan to further exploration activity in a joint venture with Shell is not because of a lack of alternatives. Feel free to ask them about venturing in new business in Colombia. I could go on and on, but rather than my talking about the projects now on the table, I invite you to talk to the people who are already there, people who do know the country, those that know the Colombian people and their business skills, the ones that understand that our outlook is more filled with opportunities than problems, those that will be our partners in writing the next 50 years of a mutually beneficial history. In a historical context, you can take a step back to see past the static picture and into the dynamics of a process. You can judge whether our pledge of economic stability is more than a hollow promises. A sense of history will allow you to envision the future, like I do, with profound optimism. Today has been about telling it like it really is, so I will end on that note. We are committed to improving the investment climate in Colombia. We do want you to have a large turnover on your investment, not only because of you, not only for the benefit of your financial statements, but also, and most importantly, because the 40 million Colombians I represent deserves the better future made possible by your investments and my policies. Thank you very much.